We are going to start the session in a few minutes. Good afternoon, participants. It gives me an immense pleasure in welcoming today's speaker, the third session for the day 4. And the title for this session is Protection and Safety Measures that Need to be Followed in Electric Vehicles. And today, it is a very blessed moment for every one of us who have joined this session, that we are having one of the eminent personality, Mr. Mohan Raj, in our midst. Sir Mohan Raj is a visionary leader who is determined to solve some of the most challenging issues of the world, and he is the founder of Shri Varu Motors, and he was previously worked as engineer in Tesla. Shri Varu Motors Private Limited, which has the brand name SVM, has been registered in ROC of Coimbatore. The brand name SVM provides the services such as manufacture of motor vehicles, motorcycles, high-speed vehicle, safety motorcycle, which comes under and serves as automobile, auto ancillaries, and dealer industries. The product idea was conceptualized while working in Tesla by Sir Mohan Raj, predicting the future of mobility. And that's a great vision what he had when he was working with Tesla. The idea of going for an alternative mode of creating a vehicle that could dominate the near future. And today, the world is witnessing the outcome of such product idea under the brand name Prana. It is one of the best riding motorcycle for Indian customer, which has exceeded the expectations from the user point of view in terms of sales and booking in the first year itself. Prana product is entirely produced in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. Prana Experience Program is a success such that the target audiences know the product existence and its performance matrices. And still a long way to go with much more innovations in the field of engineering. And today such a great personality is with among us. And his presence among us is a blessed moment. And therefore participants, kindly listen to the thoughts and the knowledge information shared by Sir Mohan Raj now in our midst. On this behalf, on this occasion, on behalf of the Department of Mechanical Engineering and Shri Ishwar College of Engineering, we welcome you, sir, for the program. Now the session is yours, sir. Sir, you have to unmute, sir. Your voice is not audible.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you all for such a warm intro. And also thank you for taking your time to enhance or learn about what we can share on the subject of EV. I know this is the last couple of days has been a lot of new technologies, a lot of things you might have learned. I will try to add more data to it. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand or and type in the questions. I will try to address it as we go. So just to, before I get started, is there a way I could get a profile of all the audience? I see about 36 people, about 40 people are there. Are all of them from mechanical background? Some are electrical?
Sir, the participants are faculty members across the department, mostly from Department of Mechanical Engineering and the EEE. And there are a few research scholars who are pursuing their research work in field of electrical vehicles and industry people, sir. Few of them are from industries.
Okay, fantastic. So then this is going to be a lot. I just want to make sure I keep my content on that line. So I put together a couple of slides so I can instill a thought on things to consider when somebody talks about EV. As we all know, mobility has come a long way. traveling from bullock carts to horses to the ICE engine to now it's mobility. Now it's all electric. EVs are not only happening in the field of the road transportation, it is also starting to emerge. Is my voice clear, or is it? So EVs also starting to emerge in the field of aerospace transit as well. So with that perspective, let me share a screen, then we'll go from there. Okay, so why do I titled this slide as EV Revolution 2.0. Anybody wanted to comment why is it called EV Revolution 2.0? Just that you know where the contexts are. The reason it's EV Revolution 2.0, EVs are not really new. They were there about 100 years ago. But at that time, the technology was not matured enough, so they could not sustain long enough. As the other alternate fuels emerged, like petrol and diesel become better in terms of refineries and transport system and etc., they kind of slowly went away. Then they resurfaced again in 90s. As you know, there are few pioneers. GM started EV1 car, then Tesla started their Model S and Roadster program. They all changed the perspective. So now everything what you see is part of EV 2.0. So electric vehicles itself, I think this time they're going to take over in terms of shifting the industry from all of the fossil-based fuel to the electric-based fuel. Primarily because one is the technology maturity in terms of availability of electronics, availability of energy storage devices, battery chemistries have improved significantly, and more importantly, the whole earth has become much more warmer. People are starting to go extra mile to make the transition. Because as you walk outside your room, you understand how hot it became, right? And we are all witnessing that change everywhere as compared to last 5 years. Then the last one, but not the least, in the last 12 months, EV sales or EV adaptation in India almost tripled. The primary reason is one, due to COVID impact, the people are not able to travel. Then they started buying the primary vehicle, meaning their own personal vehicles. Second is also their awareness about air pollution or need for a better air quality is much more than what it used to be. So that's a blessing came from the byproduct of COVID. The people wanted to live longer and better, and they realized the air is an important aspect. So they are willing to adapt. Then actually we'll spend a lot of time on this slide, right? All of you, all of you would think the moment we say EV, oh, it's an electric vehicle. True. Other than the rotating wheels, there's nothing of automobile is there, right? If you look at traditional petrol vehicle or diesel engines, you have a lot of components, right? You have carburetors to, you know all the details. You have carburetors to the injectors to combustion engine, then transmissions, then you have gears, clutches, then you have sprockets, chains, then you have radiators, the coolant, all those devices, but in electric vehicle, they are all minimized to very small component. You have an electric motor, which is almost similar to the house fan motor. It's just that lot bigger in terms of power and lot smaller in terms of size. Predominantly, the vehicles like Prana uses BLDC motors, and we also use the motors which are in the wheel. Of late, in the last 6 years, most of the four-wheel EV vehicles starting to use the direct transmission systems. So we are the first one in the motorcycle space to use that in India, and we drive all of the power out of the wheel, so that eliminates the need for clutch. It eliminates the need for sprocket. There's no chain, right? And of course, no clutch goes with it, right? So more importantly, the electric vehicles are lot of electrical engineering knowledge you need to be able to design, understand, service the vehicle. From an operation standpoint, like as a user, it's a lot more simpler. The people who experienced our vehicle would say, "Oh, this is simpler. It's just like they comment it like it's like a scooty. Almost you just accelerate and go." True, from an operation point of view, it's a lot simpler. But from all of you coming from an engineering background, from an engineering standpoint, you have a lot more work to do as an electric engineer than an automobile engineer. And I would even go one step further and say, maybe in future, like a mechatronics departments have emerged over the period. So these few combined departments will merge to create an e-mobility department or something like that. In the electronics, in the electrical field itself, we have three major components to work with. One is the power storage devices, which can also be classified further into chemical engineering. But predominantly, today they're all lithium powers. Then the second one is on the controllers. The controllers shift into electronics, right? Other than just electric being the driving power between the motor to the energy storage. But if you look at the controls, these days the motorcycle have much more processing power than a full-blown computer which had a good CPU like 3-4 years ago. The motorcycles of EVs have pretty much like an ARM-based processor with a lot of power electronics devices. So why I am bringing up the elements of the EVs, right, is because when we talk about the safety of electric vehicles comes down to not just only the automobile devices. It also comes down to all the electrical safety measures what you take in your home and the industry. We need to keep that in mind, and also the electronic safeties like EMF and RF frequency filtration, etc. So we need to keep that in mind as well. So it's a combination of three different the mainstream products combined gives you the electric vehicle. Okay, so when we talk about the precautions and safety, we have to take all these three of them together. Okay. So coming to the safety, I will leave away the personal safety because we all understand anything with electrical, we need to use isolation or insulation devices to handle. But yes, service technician or a person who is design engineers, if you look at their toolbox, they don't have a traditional tools what we used to see, right? Their tools have completely changed from a regular spanners and wrenches to vernier calipers and measuring devices to the current measuring devices. You have the most advanced, the current measuring devices, all the way from a resistance measuring device. Then you have also RMF field measurement devices. Then you have the torque measurement devices. Pretty much like the traditional platform, what used to measure the vehicle torques and the vehicle RPM speed, they are pretty much outdated, right? I can also, after this session, leave you with some more sites where we can go and read about the devices which are going to be used in the measuring of all the torques and the tools, because that devices itself will take probably 4 or 5 hours to talk about it. Okay. Then the last portion is the safe handling, right? Unlike in typical automobiles, you would either see the device is hot or you see the devices is leaking. Then you kind of work with those parameters. Whereas when you talk about electric vehicles, whether the device is on or device is off, absolutely once you open up the covers, you can't say the difference, right? The entire mindset changes. We have to always make sure you are wearing the safety devices, safety gloves. You're using the proper tools to see whether the device is on. And also it's become a lot more programmable, right? It's no longer a gear ratio determines the speed. Meaning, say if you take a car, if it has a similar gear ratio or similar gearbox, and the person driving at the similar inclination, they would have a similar behaviors. Whereas in electric vehicle, it's not the same, right? Everything is customizable. It is like your laptop. Or maybe easier to say, it's like your phone. You're having your phone and your friend having a same phone doesn't mean both have the same application, right? You both will have completely different applications, and it behaves differently. So there are a lot of programming aspects involved in the EVs. Okay, so as part of that service or even engineering, you will always need a laptop or a computer to connect and test the devices. Okay. So then going into, I think because all of you being faculties and the people in the field, you already know what the efficiencies of ICs versus what the efficiency of EV, right? From the efficiency, we'll also talk about the risk factors associated with it. From efficiency point of view, the petrol or the diesel engines dominated the market, even though their efficiency were roughly about 33%. Primarily because there was no alternate to give a challenge. Second is ease of availability of infrastructures. Even though the petrol vehicles posed a big risk of fire, right? Anytime if there is a crash or anything, the fire is one big risk people run into. But we tend to put around processes to manage it. When it comes to EVs, the EV's efficiency is always well over 90%. However, fire is not that big of a risk for EV, but water is something we have to keep in mind while we design the systems. For example, when you are designing the motors for electric vehicles, you have to take standards or safety precautions of something like IP67, right? I would assume you're already familiar with these IP standards. There are different standards. Starts with standards which protect the dust. Then there's a standard which says dust and water is okay. Then there's a next standard which is IP67, which says dust and water is okay. You can even submerge in the water for X number of hours. the motors of electric vehicles these days are submergible, and even they will be fine for 24 hours under the water. So from a design aspect, take a note at how do you update the IP capable systems in the design aspect itself. Then the next one is the dust. The dust itself is directly not a problem. However, India being a bit of a moist environment, it creates a problem during a rainy season. So if you design a system which uses external air cooling and works through some electrical devices, in a normal situation, it will be fine. But the moment rainy day starts, the monsoon season starts, you will start to experience all sort of failures, right? This is something new for the scholars to keep in mind. Like electric devices, even the simple the fan regulators in the home, they usually have the vents, and then the vents used for the heat dissipation, and dust goes and settles there. But even the rainy days inside the home, that's not a big deal. But if you put the same device in electric vehicle or inside the automobile, because the vehicle is moving, the amount of airflow is going to be a lot more different than the device sitting inside the home. Because airflow happens, and along with the wet moisture, you would experience a lot of short circuits. So taking those two protection measurements needed, always from a design point of view, the team need to be aware of IP standards, design the products nothing less than IP67. Okay, so again, I'm repeating that for people who may be designing things in the future, because you want to design a product which never fails in the common use cases. So IP67 motors, IP67 chargers, then also IP67 converters, if possible IP67 controller as well, and battery pack. But I think the technology on those two areas will take a little bit longer to get there. Any questions so far? I am missing the question window. Okay, no question. Okay. Okay, now getting into a little bit of heavy learning sites. Is all of you familiar with this terminology, HEV, PHEV, and EVs? So HEVs are heavy electric vehicles. They're yet to penetrate in India. I think the buses could be one of the example for that. The PHEVs are plug-in and also heavy electric vehicles. These are the kind of a semi-hybrids. There are some trucks starting to come in this market. This also probably a newer technology will come up in India in near future. Then the third one is the EVs. I think a lot of things are happening in India in the EV aspects. You've seen a lot of cars already there. Then a lot of two-wheelers were there for quite some time. They were using different batteries or a different drivetrain mechanism. Why do we need to worry about the battery and different drivetrain mechanism? If you ask that question from a context of safety and precautions, because all your safety measures directly relate to the type of the devices or type of the batteries, type of the voltage you or the range of voltage and ampere you use. So that's why we have to set this context in that regard. And most of the EVs, if you look at the heavy electric vehicles, their voltages are in the range of 100 to 600 volt. Even there are some new ones, they talk about 1000+ volts also. The battery pack itself, they completely sealed it, and it also has a device called BMS. So taking time to talk about the BMS. So the BMS is one of the protection device. Its job is to make sure that the battery is in healthy state. If you look at today's battery on any EVs, it is made up of beads of cells. It is almost like how we make our art bead, like necklace or some wire net mesh. The cells are connected in serial as well as parallel to build up the voltage and to build up the amperes. So now when you connect something in serial and parallel, how do we make sure that each of the individual components are healthy? Being lithium cells, you need to manage each cell individually, because the cell overheat or cell overprotection or over discharge can lead to either cell damage or the fire or explosion, right? So combining all of those, it's almost like a matchstick, right? Think of like a matchstick, one matchsticks in a box, but only thing is the fire is already lit. So now how do you make sure that they're not catching to each other in a destructive way? So that's the function of BMS there. BMS does monitor each cells individually for their temperature, for their voltage, for their resistance. And during the charging function, when you plug the vehicle to the wall and charge it, at that point the BMS takes care of making sure that each cell is healthy in the pack and they're getting the necessary voltages and currents to charge, and also monitors to see if any of the cells already reach the charging capacity. If they have, then the BMS has to turn off the current to those cells. So when we talk about the current turning off or turning on, there are many forms of BMSs. There are some BMS which are super advanced, and they have ability to not only turn off or on the current, they also have ability to take the current from the device which are higher in, they reach the higher level of charge, and distribute it to the lower level of charging devices, so that the whole cells in the pack reach a common area where the pack capacity is usable. Okay, so the BMS is the one area you could take a note of it and again further advance on it. Then in this also, the overcharge and the vibration and extreme temperatures. So extreme temperature, if you talk about, it's not only the ambient temperature. When the current is discharged or charged, there are two measurements come into play. One is called C rating, which is discharge C rating, and a charge C rating. If a battery capacity is say 50 amps, and if you're charging at 50 amps current, it is called you are charging at 1C, meaning one capacity of the full battery. Typically, during the charging cycle, one capacity charging produces a little bit of heat, not a whole lot, but a little bit of heat. But in the discharging, 1C discharge is typically okay. But most of the vehicles will need more than 1C discharge. It will discharge almost like 2C or 3C, depending on how you are accelerating the vehicle. So the more the discharge ratio, there will be a lot of heat generated in the battery pack. So then that's when the extreme temperature management measures are put in place to either air cool the system or water cool the system, or sometimes there's also mixed of liquid cooling the systems. Okay, so the cooling inside the battery pack is another precautionary measures added to make sure that the temperature is okay. From a design point of view, there are few standards internationally. I will actually give the standards name in the next couple of slides, so you can research on it, because those standards are very well written and they're very well documented. And also, if you look at the EVs is a platform, because the batteries are so heavy. Most manufacturers place the battery at the lowest center of gravity. Therefore, it's much easier to ride, and it's stable. So the rollover risk of EVs are very, very unlikely. So you don't have to worry too much about the rollover leak or things like that, because that's not going to happen in the EV. However, we need to consider how emergency peoples are responding, right? For example, uh, if the vehicle is having some sort of got into some issues, we need to be careful handling the vehicle before touching it, right? Most of the high voltage lines in the vehicles are clearly designated with orange coloring. So there are very strict color codes inside the vehicle. All the places where high voltages are there, there's orange colors, and also there's an orange color stickers telling that this is high voltage, right? In Indian definition, the high voltage is anything above 60 volt is defined as a high voltage. So you would see that the colors code there, okay? And all the vehicles have multiple level of protection. They have a protection of electronics based protection, which is any overcurrent or over voltage or over temperature. The device itself will disconnect, then it will wait for the condition to resolve. Then once condition is restored, it will continue to operate. Essentially very sleek. It's not like an MCB where it trips, then you have to manually go and turn on, right? You can do that in a programmatic way. Then the next level of protection is there's an MCB which takes care of preparing device for maintenance or service or some sort of parts replacements, right? You can turn off and all the currents are cut off. So that's another device. Then the last one is fuse, but fuse is very less and less used these days, primarily because the fuses tend to burn out after some time, and the burnout of fuse in the EVs means the user not able to drive, right? It's very different than what you have seen in the typical application. Like fuse is gone means only light won't glow or something like that, okay? So this page, instead of talking about all the regulation, I put down the regulation numbers so you can write it down and you can further further read about it. Each regulation has about 50 to 150 pages of data. The IEC TC69 is the regulation very heavily used in India. Pretty much most EVs of two-wheelers and three-wheelers use this standard, IEC standard. Then CE electric standard is in Europe. Also we have ISO TC22. Then we have CN TC301. Predominantly, okay, what are these standards talk about? They predominantly talk about the voltages used in the vehicle. How much ampere it carries, how much voltage it can carry, and what kind of power connector it has to carry, right? Like your cell phone chargers connectors, you have USB-C, B, and lightning connectors. Whereas in EVs, you have CC2 connectors, you have also proprietary connectors from some of the leading players. So those connector standards are defined as part of it. In SVM's case, we studied all the standards. Then we looked at the availability of EV stations. And we said, okay, why don't we just use IEC standard and use Indian 16 amps plug? So that way, everybody's home already has a charger. So that's what model what we used. If we look into the voltage category itself, roughly between 48 to 96 volts are used for motorcycle and the scooters. Up to 120 volts are generally in the cars and vans. Then you have a larger vans, which is 240 volts. Then the buses up to 600 volts. Do you want a couple seconds to note down the standards? Okay. I see now you have 59 people. That's a good number of people, but I hope they joined early enough so they can make the context out of it. Okay. I have only 2 more slides, then we are good to go in terms of the content, but then we can open up the Q&A sessions if you're looking for some clarifications or wanted to touch upon area which is not directly addressed here. So protection against the direct and indirect contacts. So the standards also talk about what are all the precautions you need to take as a designer. You can't put an exposed wire around the frame and design. The standards very clearly call for any high voltage wires need to be concealed and it need to be inside the panel, and also that cannot be accessed without using a screws or tools to remove the panel. Therefore, it exposes the next level of access. So those are part of the standards itself. Because frame faults, those things which are called design issues in the frame area are leading into short circuits or any kind of electrocution aspects called frame faults. And once you read the IEC standard, it's very clearly articulated in terms of what to be done or what not to be done. Okay. We talked about already on the kind of mechanism used for the hazard prevention. There's a fuse. In my point of view, fuse is going away primarily because of the high current. We're not able to reliably rely on the fuses for long functionality. And there's also the frame complete isolation. So what they're talking about here, this level of frame isolation is, so the electric vehicles primarily operate on the DC volts. So the DC power from the battery pack and the power from the running of the devices are never shorted to the ground of the chassis. They're completely kept separate, so that it's child-proof for the users to operate. Okay. And I already mentioned about accessible ports adjacent to equipment need to be isolated. That's there. And also the leakage current detection. So this is actually a combination of measure put in place in 2 levels. One inside the vehicle and also at the home. As a user, they need to make sure that the earthing plays a bigger role on maintaining the devices. And also inside the automobile, see, we would have never thought an automobile needs a proper earthing, but with an EV, it's all changed. It definitely needs a proper earthing, and it's very, very important for safety of the device as well as the people. Going into the battery. I mentioned about the BMS systems already. Besides BMS, there are a few other factors. The electrical safety factors, which were like just charge and discharge ratio, I mentioned. Anything about 1, 2, 3 Cs are considered okay. Beyond that, if there is a run-up happening, then that could lead to the cell level leakage. Then the battery also need to be mechanically protected from any side fall of the vehicle and also from the vibration angle. So that is part of the standard as well. The chemical, I think most of you already know. Word lead acid you already know very, very well. It's been there for a long time. Then lithium is the new one, But inside the lithium, there are many chemistries. It is almost like taking one type of cracker and telling, oh, we know all type of crackers. It's impossible. There are lithium ferrophosphate, then there are NMCD, then you have NMC, then you have cobalt, then there is a lithium sodium chemistry is also coming up. All of this chemistry, what do? They all have a common functionality, which is store and retain the energy. Then why do we need so many chemicals or so many combinations? The primary difference between all these combinations are the density in which they hold the energy. It's called watts per kg. How many watts can it hold in a 1 kg of weight? So that's one reason. The second one is their chemical properties of discharge and charge ratio. How much they can tolerate. And the third property is how difficult to get the material. Are they mined? Cobalt is a little bit difficult, whereas NMC is a little bit more easier. The sodium they're moving into because it's much more easily available around the world, right? So that the third factor considering the battery and its safety aspect is the chemicals used. Then the fourth category is the temperature in which it can operate. For example, LFP batteries, which is used in Prana like motorcycles, you'll almost see never explode because the chemistry is such that it will never explode and never catch fire. Whereas if you use some of the polymer batteries, which are used in our phones, right? Many of you might have seen the phones flaming up. So those are all the temperature properties of the battery. So that's a consideration when you design your vehicle. Need to make sure where it's going to be operated, what temperature it's going to be exposed, and what is the discharge rate, and choose your chemistry. Then the least, the fifth element is the number of cycles. How often or how many times you can use. Like our cell phones, the day when you buy it, the charge rate is very good. After a year and a half, the charge slowly drops, right? But if you look at a year and a half of use case, you're basically probably charged only like 200 to 300 times. But whereas in EV, if you're traveling normally, you would charge every day and you wanted that to work for 5 years. So that's a lot more expectation from the user. So the chemistries of EVs are generally from anywhere around 800 cycles to 5,000 cycles. Some of them are committing even like 10,000 cycles. But the one in the market, what we can get and what we can deliver today are roughly about 2,000 cycles for LFP packs. Then we have another one, which is NMC, which are about 800 to 1,600 cycles. The chemistry of the battery pack directly connected with the explosion hazard. Like polymer battery, if you were ever to poke, it has the potential to explode. Whereas LFP, if you poke, it will be fine. NMC, it's okay with like a normal usage hazard, but it has a problem if it was ever squeezed in. So those areas you need to consider. So takeaway from this battery safety angle is it is not only the physical safety of the box from a vibration and angle point and the ceiling and the dust and pollution, etc. You also need to consider the other aspects like electrical and chemical and explosion hazards. Okay. The chargers. The most often, most underrated aspect is everybody wanted to charge very quick, right? Everybody wanted to say, oh, can we charge your vehicle in 15 minutes, in 30 minutes, right? When we look at the charger, there has to be amount of energy need to be transmitted from your supply source to the battery pack. If your battery is 3 kilowatt or 4 kilowatt, you need to transfer 4 kilowatt energy from one side to the other side. If you're doing it 1C, which is the full capacity, it will take 1 hour to charge. If you're trying to do anything faster than 1 hour, that means you're doing more than 1C capacity, right? The C is the term I described before. It's the capacity of the device's operating device, and also the capacity either you are discharging or charging. If that is matching, it is called 1C. Okay. There are few standards for vehicle charging. Predominantly, they are categorized into 4 modes. The mode 1 charging is what predominantly used in India. It's up to 16 amps on the AC side. If you consume, you would be using AC charging mode 1, which is IEC 61851 standard. That means it's regular 16 amps plug in our home. It is allowed in India because that's the only thing we have in most cases. Then you have also 32 amps mode 2 charger. That's what used in the cars in India. Then mode 3 AC charging, there's no current limit per the standard, but that's what you see it in the commercial charging station. Mode 4 and all is used in superchargers. They are lot more higher capacity. From a scholar's point of view, you might want to take a note of the standard. IEC 61851 is the standard you wanted to read up, so that you know when you're designing the vehicle, how do you match the user expectation of me charging the vehicle in like quicker versus what plugs you need and what standards and technology you need to follow. Okay, so that's pretty much covers all of the safety and precautions. So we touched upon safety and precautions of the overall vehicle. Then we touched upon safety precautions of the drivetrain, protecting it from water and air and other pollutions in terms of moisture. Then we talked about the battery and their behavior and the safety measures you need to take. Then we talked about the chargers. What are the different type of chargers? What are the safety measures? And we also touched upon the user's home, like predominantly earthing in the home is important for the EVs. Then on this emergency or the safety personal point of view, how to handle that. And we also touched upon a little bit on the knowledge requirement to operate the EVs. The EVs are not a typical automobile. It's basically a computer on wheel. So it's electronics, electrical, and automobile all together. So we touched upon those. Then I have a couple of reading documents. It's just a link. These are basically written by protective device manufacturing companies like Schneider's, right? Schneider and Legrand are the Schneider, Legrand, and Eaton are the world leading protective device manufacturers. So they have written a very nice white papers on what kind of devices are there. So I gave a link here, so you can look at those papers. I shall send this document to the team so they can extract the link and give it to you all. Okay. I think that concludes my session on the safety and precautions, or protection and precautions, right? Okay, let me stop sharing. Then we'll open up for Q&A.
Thank you very much, sir, for this nice presentation. Now, participants, the session is open for questionnaire session. If you are having any questions that can be asked to the resource person, please kindly post it in the chat box. Sir, before going into the questionnaire session, I am having a question to ask with you, sir. So you are previously working in Tesla. So what inspired you, sir, that you got this idea of start with your own venture, sir? Because everybody says that Tesla is a dream company it is one of the choice. But being in the Tesla, you made a different choice.
Okay. See, I think it's all comes down to what one aspires to be. If you look at the way I look at this world, there's a saying in Sanskrit, which is this world is I'm trying to translate from Sanskrit to Hindi to then Tamil, right? Or English. This world is a making of the making of the karma yogas, the people who are warriors of the duties, right? That means whatever we have today, the life comfort or life ease of doing everything, is created by somebody who had done hard work in the previous generations, right? It doesn't need to be somebody directly related to us. It's just like somebody invented electricity, so we are using electricity and having a conference, right? If we had to have a life 100 years ago, this life would have been a lot difficult, right? So taking that inspiration, I wanted to create this, leave this place better than what I found. A lot of people gave me an opportunity. Thereby, I can one take care of myself and family and thrive to excel. Then, how do I give it back? Is my quest, right? During college days itself, I wanted to start an automobile entrepreneurship or Indian entrepreneurship, possibly in automobile field, but the timing and the resourcefulness need to be prepared. So I took a path of joining electronics company, then I came all the way till Tesla. Then when I saw that the Model S in a direct driving system, we were able to say, okay, if we can implement this in India, the people can comfortably travel without going through the pollution problem, right? So that's what started. And also, second thing is, I personally believe life is really, really short, and I wanted to make sure I lived it to the full, right? So I don't want to wait and say, oh, I thought of doing this and I thought of doing this, I thought of doing this. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of thought of doing things, never done it, right? I just wanted to try it. I had an opportunity, so I'm doing it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So one of the question from participant, the question reads like this: electric vehicles need small but periodic maintenance. Is it true, sir?
That is true, and it will get to that point in fairly due course, maybe 3 years or so. Yes, it will not need a lot of periodic maintenances. However, the electric vehicle will transform from being just a vehicle to a connected device. The connected devices will need a little bit more of updates. So it's going to be a balance there.
Thank you, sir. Now, what is the present in Indian scenario when you talk about protection against short circuits with circuit breakers? Are we having the ability to develop our own protection module, or still we are relying upon other renowned industries from abroad?
The protection modules, I'm sure there would be, I did not check who is making in India, other than I know Schneider's and Legrand exist in India, though they are foreign companies. I'm sure there are a lot of space for the research is open. I don't think it's been explored a lot, right? Ideally, I think if you can design a system which which can improve current available methodology, it will always be adapted. There's definitely a scope for development, but I never thought about from a point of is it possible to design a new thing as an individual? I'm not sure. Because that I think anytime you wanted to develop a product and get to the market, it involves a lot of regulatory follow-ups processes. That means any new product is typically come from a research team of a company.
Thank you, sir. Another question from participant Ganesh Kumar. The question is, can we use gearbox to improvise the speed and range in EVs?
I know this is a question asked many times. Many people have asked. The difference between the direct drive, the direct drive and the gearbox based system energy efficiency is about 10%. The moment you introduce a gearbox, now we are talking about 10% energy reduction. That's in terms of EVs.
Yes, sir. Another question from the participants is, it says that How far the Indian condition is viable for this paradigm shift to EVs compared to other developed nations?
I think we will have to get there. But in India, every people needed a different incentive to get there. Just like when you say to somebody, "Hey, don't put a trash on the road," versus if you put a trash on the road, you will be penalized like 5,000 rupees. Then we don't put the trash, right? It's just a different incentives. As far as the technology, it's already there. As far as the road conditions are already there, awareness is there. India produces enough electricity. It's also there. The only thing is need to do is mass production of the vehicle, and adaptation will happen because I think government has taken enough policy decision to raise up the fuel price points so that it makes advantages for the people to follow.
Thank you, sir. Now, another question from the participant is, in India specifically, in India, we are having different type of road conditions. That is, there are some hilly regions and flat surfaces and all. So when we go for an EV vehicle, does it will suit for all conditions?
It will suit for all conditions. You need to make your choice whether your needs are like only driving local with a slow speed, or you needed a vehicle which has a better gradient range. So Indian government requirement for gradient climbing is about 6%, 6 degree. Whereas the most vehicles like Prana and all can climb 17 degree. However, we climb about 8 degree, right? So we have traveled with Prana or vehicle like Prana all the way till the Mysore road, the Timbam, the hill routes, right? So the technology is there. You just have to choose the vehicle with the right motor size, so enough capacity is there to drive you.
Yes, sir. So this question is from my side, sir. When we talk about your product Prana, how much duration it took for you to launch it into the market, sir?
It's
And
actually
what are the difficulties you faced in transforming your idea into a product?
it took me almost like first, if I look back my original drawing notes, the first drawing notes I wrote it in 2014. It's almost like 8 years to get to the market. The most difficult question, the difficult thing I have is the combined technology like of electrical, electronics, mechanical in one product is very difficult to get a skill set, right? If I hire somebody on any one department, they don't know the other department skill set. And being a startups, we need to make sure they all talk to each other and they do the best possible. So that the developing the skill set on my next level leadership was the most challenge, and developing the skill sets on the team members was another challenge we had. But we have a very good team now, and we are fast learners, and they're coming up to the speed, and they're good. So it's a little bit more effort.
Yeah, that's good to hear, sir. Now, another participant has given a question, sir. It says, why battery swells in the module without short circuit or aging? Swelling in batteries.
It is predominantly battery leaking. It happens typically in the pouch cells, right? That's the pouch cell is the one of the least expensive module cells. Anytime when you overcharge the battery pack or pouch, you will experience that problem. So it's predominantly the battery is damaging because it couldn't handle the stress what you're putting on. Either not able to charge fast, not able to hold the current, or not able to discharge as fast as you want.
We will take up another two questions, sir, if it is okay for you.
Sure.
Sir, the first question is, are electric vehicles safe in accidents? Because since it is mostly built with batteries, whether it is safe when it encounters with an accident?
It's pretty safe. It's in fact, when you talk about accident safety, it's more safer than petrol vehicle, because petrol vehicles have much more tendency to get into fire than electric vehicles. And electric vehicles also have lower center of gravity, so and also the regenerative braking system, so it doesn't even get into accident just like that. That's a big difference, right? The people who have test driven Prana will say the Prana's braking is completely different. So that's one. The second is the design element aspects. For example, the short circuit protection or overcurrent protection devices come into play to make sure that the users are safe.
Okay, sir. And the last question, what we would like to take up here is, the participant has asked that what will be the effect when lightning strikes an electric car? Will it have an adverse effect?
Good point. Good question. I haven't studied it. I'll have to check. I'm sure there will be a lot of readily available data. Because the electric battery itself is always isolated from the regular the chassis, it should be no different than anything else. I think even when lightning strikes a regular petrol vehicle, its result is fire, right? Worst case in EVs also, it will be fire only.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Participants, if you have any further questions, you can post it, or otherwise we can wind up the session with a formal vote of thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. That was sir. We will be winding up the session with a formal vote of thanks, sir.
Okay.
So at this juncture, dear participants, I once again come to your presence in presenting the vote of thanks. Today we had a wonderful session in our midst with Sir Mohan Raj, entrepreneur and a person who brought his vision into reality by launching a product in e-vehicle. He started this project way much before, and today we are talking about this paradigm shift. And his presence is really a blessed one in our midst. And we thank you, sir, for accepting the invitation and joining us in your busy schedule, sir. And we also thank you, Lord, sir, for the knowledge sharing and the various information you talked with us in terms of protection and safety measures. And I also thank the participants for posting their questions and queries in this session, sir. Once again, I thank you on behalf of the Department of Mechanical Engineering and Sri Ishwar College of Engineering, sir. Looking forward to you for continuous support and guidance for the department and institute.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Dear participants, with this, we are winding up the day 4 session.